It was around 3 a.m. this June. I was on a Skype with this cute girl I encountered on a forum a month ago. We were discussing about strange things that happened to me recently. Doors shutting, lamps turning on and off, even objects falling from the furniture. She was talking about a ghost or a poltergeist who might have fun with this kind of stuff. But even though I felt paranoid, being paralyzed by the slightest noise, I couldn't believe in these stories. Well, that's what I've told myself all along. Something I knew I could regret sooner or later. I was in the dark and I felt a little uncomfortable after our long debate on the subject. I decided it was time to refresh myself. I got up and entered my bathroom, then washed my hands to make sure the water wasn't too cold. I stared at my reflection for a moment. After a brief hesitation, I bent over and splashed water over my face. Then I felt something unusual, like a slight airflow. I looked behind me. The door was closed. Did I shut the door when I entered the bathroom? I couldn't remember. I took a towel and proceeded to dry my face, unable to see a thing. While doing so, I heard a knock on glass-like object. At first, I thought it was coming from the mirror, but there was nothing except my reflection staring back at me. I put the towel back on the towel holder and opened the door when I saw something in the corner of my eye and heard a little noise, like something had moved behind me. I quickly looked back at the bathroom. At first, I looked at the mirror, but I then noticed the towel was on the floor, right in front of the bath. I was about to pick it up, but as I approached, I felt more and more uncomfortable. I could not stop staring at the shower curtain. Then I heard a second knock, the same than before, but I realized it wasn't coming from the mirror nor the bathroom. I turned around and headed back to my room, letting the towel on the floor. Now almost back to my bed, when I felt like something was watching me. I looked through the window, but there was nothing unusual. I took my computer and asked my buddy if she has heard the knocks on the glass or if it was her. Yes, I did hear it, she said. You still do not believe in poltergeist stuff? I admitted having doubts about what I told her earlier. She then got up and said I'll be right back, and left the room. She left the door slightly open, which made me uncomfortable for a moment, but then I heard this noise again. A knock on the glass of my window. I felt too paranoid at first, and did not dare to take a look. I thought it was my imagination, but it knocked a second time. I looked up from my screen, only to find something was standing still, behind my window, staring, grinning. I almost felt like it was laughing at me, my monitor being the only light source in the room. I could hardly see its face, but its smile petrified me for a moment. After a few seconds, I heard a door open and footsteps. I could barely catch my breath when I heard, "Hey, I'm back." I looked back at the screen and understood it only was my buddy that got back on her computer. I told her I had to show her the thing that was staring at me, but it had faded away before I could rotate my webcam. "Did it really scare you?" she said. "I thought you didn't believe in those things." Haha. Her reaction made me curious. Why was she so excited about this? I was so lost in my reflection that I thought I imagined what she said next. "Boo," said the ghost, and he disappeared. Before I could even react, the screen went black for a moment. It soon got back to normal, but something different was on the screen. It wasn't the excited girl's face anymore. I saw a man sitting on his bed, facing the computer. In fact, the scene was very familiar, until I recognized it. It was my bedroom. On the verge of panic, I was still able to notice something odd. The angle from which was taken the image of my bedroom. It was as if something was right outside of my window, filming that exact moment. I looked through the window for a second, before turning around to face my screen again. The delay let me see myself stare back at me through the webcam. The screen went back to the girl I've been talking to for the past month. Except this time, she was in near pitch black. She got closer to the camera and didn't do much for a few seconds. Still frightened from what had just happened, I didn't move, waiting for her to say something. But she remained silent. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand until she started grinning. Clouds blotted out the sun as Dixon Rhodes' car traveled down the highway toward Boulder City Penitentiary. Lightning streaked through the sky as Dixon waited for a new guard to open the gate to the prison. The guard hit a button, which caused the gate to slide open as desired, and tipped his hat courteously. Dixon parked his car in the lot, perfectly in between both lines. He looked in his rear-view mirror to make sure that he looked professional. He straightened his tie and adjusted his glasses until he was assured that his appearance was immaculate. As he opened his driver's door, rain began to pour from the sky. Dixon reached over to the passenger seat and grabbed his umbrella. He began to curse himself internally for leaving his car door open and turning his back to it. What if a prisoner had escaped? That never happens, his mind reassured him. He locked and shut the driver's door as he opened up his umbrella. Dixon walked up to the second gate into the penitentiary and again waited as the guard opened the gate. Dixon was caught in his thoughts, thinking about the rumor that the prison was haunted when the guard spoke. "The gate is open, Warden Rhodes," he flatly stated. Rhodes bowed his head in thanks as he continued toward the prison. Lightning forked through the sky as Rhodes neared the building. Blood spatter on the wall next to the door was illuminated briefly thanks to the flash. He turned his head toward the guard that was to let him into the prison. "What happened?" "An incident, sir. Everything is fine now." "What? Was it a riot?" The guard nodded his head in affirmation. "I can't believe they got this far out," Dixon muttered. The guard opened the prison door with the keys and locked it behind the warden as he entered. The room was poorly lit. This is a security issue and is unacceptable, he thought. The darkness made Rhodes uncomfortable as his mind shifted back to all of the strange incidents. He thought of how things had a habit of going missing from his office, the strange noises that went on during the night, and the reports of figures being spotted in the prison yard at night, which always disappeared by the time the guards would arrive. Rhodes had an explanation for each, multiple even, but that did little to quell his fear of a ghost grabbing him and pulling him into the darkness. A guard stepped beside Rhodes so as to escort him to his office. He couldn't tell if it was Frank or not, due to the poor visibility. Frank Slater was the name of the guard who usually provided escort. Rhodes turned to the guard. "Frank?" "What?" The man said in between coughs. "You don't sound well." "One of the prisoners popped me good during the riot. I'll manage." Strange sounds came from the distance. The sounds became more distinguishable as he got nearer to cell block D. Wails of pain came from the other side of the door. Ghosts? Preposterous. Surely the riot wasn't still in progress. The guards couldn't have been so irresponsible as to let him in during a riot. Frank opened the door and shut it behind the warden. Rhodes turned around and tried the door. It had been locked. Frank was supposed to have escorted him to his office. He was now going to need to have a serious conversation with Frank about his behavior and future at the prison. Rhodes turned around and was relieved to see that cell block D's lighting was up to the standard. He looked up and saw that the cells were shut and locked. That counted for something at least. 2 new guards came up to Rhodes and began to escort him to his office. A banging came from his right, and he quickly realized that it was a prisoner banging on his cell. Rhodes turned his head to yell at the prisoner, but when he glanced over at the cell to his right, he saw that Frank was locked in it.